Hello, my name is Hannah Turo. This is my museum project for Global History and Culture 2. The museum that I went to was a museum of contemporary art, and this museum is one of the largest that's dedicated to only contemporary art. It was opened in 1967, and the goal of the museum is to provide the public with ideas of artists and understanding of historical, social, and cultural context. And the art that was in the museum, it wasn't very old. It was like the oldest pieces that we saw were like from the 1950s, but it speaks to the changing world through the lens of each individual artist as they used history to help inspire their art and what they think will happen next. One of the first rooms that we went into was dedicated to the AIDS epidemic, and they had a bunch of different art in there, and these are two of the ones that I like the most. And in class, we talked a lot about the ecology of disease and how the microbes spread and the microbial exchange, and how when people are moving from here and there and everywhere, they bring their diseases with them. So when the people moved to the Americas and started colonizing over here, and then all the Native Americans hadn't met those diseases yet, so they were getting a little sick and a little dead because they just couldn't help it with the new diseases that they weren't used to. And also, I know that was really important for when the Spanish were in Central America doing the conquering and such, that the diseases really helped them out with getting rid of the native people. And stop, please. Stop, please. Okay. And also with the urbanization and how all the people started living close together like this, and then they were all in the big cities, but they didn't have good sanitation, they didn't have very much hygiene practices, no running water and that type of stuff. Maybe they had running water, I didn't ask. But that led to the diseases spreading really fast, and everyone would get super sick because they're all like this, really close like this, and then they'd all get sick and they'd all spread the diseases really fast in between them. And so that had led to the people, they gotta have medicine now. They gotta have ways to take care of people and treatments and all this stuff. So that really made healthcare and medications very important in developing and that type of stuff. And also today, this week, but I did the homework today, we were talking about AIDS, and I was reading that AIDS is still crazy prevalent in Africa. And I learned that AIDS started in Africa, and it was primarily spread between men and women. And I know over here it's more with homosexual men. My uncle had AIDS, but he got murdered. He didn't die of AIDS. And they got to start making treatments. They got to start having medicines. And the influenza, they had to have medicines, and now we got the flu vaccine, and the HIV and the AIDS is still newer. So I know that they cannot cure, they cannot take it all the way away, but they can make it where you live. And you're not dying from AIDS anymore. The sun is really blocking everything. You're not dying from AIDS anymore is what I know. And these two pieces, one of them is the peach light, and that is this one on this side. And that was made by Roger Brown in 1983. And at the time of him making that painting, his partner had lung cancer related to HIV and AIDS, and he lost his partner while he was making it. And this one is another artist named Hunter Reynolds, he made this one in 2015, and he has HIV, but the treatments are better nowadays, so he is not dead from the HIV. And his art is a collage of awareness for people who have lost their life to AIDS. These are all these newspapers in here are different clippings about different people who have passed away, and the art can show the achievements that the world of medicine has made and what it will continue to make. because we've seen how diseases in the past have taken away people completely, and now we can get away from those diseases. And hopefully AIDS can get cured one day. Yeah. Next, there was a lot of pieces that represented the racism and resistance, and throughout history there's a lot of racism. That's something that on almost every chapter there was an aspect of people being racist. For example, like the places in the East Dutch Indies in the 1860s, that there was less than 1/4 of women out of all the like European settlers that went there. All of them were men. 1/4 was women, so the men didn't want to be gay, and so they started making friends and intermingling with the native people that lived there. And this, in the East Indies and also in like Central America, they had the name Creoles. Oh, I wrote it over there. They have the name Creoles, and that's what they would call the people who had like a little bit ski of European and a little bit ski of elsewhere. And those people were also treated poorly because they're not fully European, and I guess that's not good enough. So this piece, the she is depicted wearing this lovely hat, and that is because in the time when she was living in there, it was New Orleans under Spanish colonial rule, and that is called a tignon, Tignon, and the women who lived in that area that were Creole, that were like descent of European and somewhere else, they had to cover their hairs. And so the girls said, I'll cover my hairs, but I'm going to do it pretty. And so they'd use these really like fancy sauce fabrics, and they would make it and they decorate with little ornaments. Yeah. And that's what I wrote. Okay. Also, the Haitian Revolution, it lasted from 1791 to at least 1806. And after all the people saw the French fighting in the revolution, the Haiti people were like, let's get on that. And then it was a series of military, political, social, and economic ruptures, some quite violent and radical, that eventually led to independence and freedom of the Haitian people. One of these, it's this one, and it's got a long name. It's once we have torn shit down, we will inevitably be able to see more and see differently and see a new sense of wanting and becoming and being. And this piece in 2014 was meant to signify the healing and resistance. Healing and resistance. The sculpture is after the Sans-Souci Palace in Haiti, which was built for the revolutionary leader Henri Christophe. The palace had been in ruins since an earthquake in 1842, and the piece depicts a symbol of a very revolutionary time and speaks to all the turmoil that people had to go through to be free. Okay, last one. This one, talking a little bit more about slavery, and slavery is a major topic that was like at least the back half of all the chapters that we did. We were talking about slavery, I feel, in some sort of way. And there were slaves everywhere in America, in all the other places. I read about Australia being super racist too, I just found out. And so this is the Ode to la Serene, and it depicts a Haitian water goddess through a variety of textures as a African woman, someone who is often excluded from Western art history, which, this is a new painting, 2014, still excluded from Western art. There's no reason for that. This piece emphasizes that the idea that more African protagonists in art, and also displays the fact that there are still many racist people in the world. Next, colonialism and cultural identity with these two pieces. The colonialism of people in a native country from outsiders happens all across the world. Places are also colonized by foreigners in order to trade over there. They did it to expand their economies in other places, like when the Europeans were colonized in like the tropical islands, and they were getting all the goods and taking them away. And there's a whole bunch of different reasons for colonization throughout history. And the tonal time, 2024, this one here, it depicts a painting of a colonial era map. It is a Dutch maritime map. She paints the Dutch flowers in the glass representing the global trade, and the artist recognizes that these maps are also used for colonization. She talks a lot about that. I was reading up because some of these things are hard to find. The Wanderlust demanding recompense is the palm tree lady with her legs, the palm tree with the lady legs, and is meant to challenge the stereotypes and explore themes of colonial rule and cultural identity. The artist shows great interest in the colonization of the Caribbean and the Americas through much of her art, not just these two, because these are the same person. I think her last name is Baez, and she does a lot about colonialization. So next was the Yoko Ono, and this exhibit was like their special featured exhibit that they had in their museum. Like, it was the top floor, and it was like the whole place was about her. And it was called The Music of the Mind. And there were pieces that were created over 7 decades and across 3 different continents because she was traveling. Art has changed very much throughout history. The early art depicts whales, probably because of the rituals or magical properties that drawings have in relation to the people hunting, and the people drew things that they like to eat. The oldest art on Esther Island is a birdman. I read about that. The people were primarily eating birds there. Later, there was no art just for the sake of it. People were creating art for a task, like they were doing their art, but they were also learning how to use the bronze to make their art and how to make the bronze into a cannon. And they were making guns too. Bang. Pow. Leaders would commission artists to paint their battles, and by the 16th and 17th centuries, the church's domination over art had decreased, and the people were more free to be creative rather than only painting religious themes. And with all this, art and the purpose of it has changed very much, and it continues to change. This Draw Circle event, this was one of the first times that they had been doing like mail art, and Yoko Ono would send these little postcards out and send them out blank, and then she'd pass them in the mail, and they'd come back with the art. And this was one of, like, this is just more showing how art keeps on changing, because I could draw one of these. And they put it in a museum. I should be in a museum. That's what I know. Okay, last one. This girl, Reg, please. This girl laying in the grass. Here she goes. She's reading a book about labor, inequality, and violence. All the things that happen all the time into history and in the all the time now. Labor. Labor is the driving force that makes the world work. Throughout history, people have either had to work to make money, take care of their family, or supply goods or services to people around them. Labor has also been taken advantage of and imported from other places in the instances of child labor, terrible working conditions, and slavery. Even at present time, people are expected to let their working time overflow well into their resting time. Inequality. Inequality has been felt by minorities for hundreds of years through many different avenues. Many people around the world are guilty of treating people inhumanely through slavery, segregation, and racism. People have been treated unjustly and have had their rights taken away for years. Violence. Violence is something that happens all around the world. In wars on the largest scale and between singular people on the smaller side. Terrible violence is committed on enslaved people, the Jewish during the Holocaust, and Native Americans through colonization. So many more. People love to be mean. That's what I know. Unrest and resistance, because we love you all, and to all those who have stolen from among us. That's what this is called. 2020. She's laying here, she's reading a book. All these topics that I just talked about are what that book is about. She's laying in the grass. She's meant to symbolize resistance against the things that she's reading about, against the labor, the working hard all day, every day, doing nothing but work, the inequality, and the violence, laying in the grass, being peaceful. All these topics are shown throughout history, and maybe if everyone would take the time to lay in the grass and read a book, that we could be a little bit nicer. Okay, that's all I wrote on there. In conclusion, The museum was in a cohesive manner. I think that it was fun to walk through. I had a great time. I had a really great time. There are lots of different rooms that keeps you engaged. They had like things that were like interactive, like that Yoko Ono wanted us to be banging on the wall with a hammer. She wanted us to play some chess. She wanted us to paint on the walls with some blue. I was into it. And for the most part, there's adequate background for each piece of art had adequate background, so you could get like historical context for each piece. And there's only a couple that I had to like look up online and figure it out. But other than that, it was pretty good. The information is presented clearly. Yeah, same thing with I had to look up a couple things to read more about the pieces of art. There was only like 2 out of the ones that I picked that I had to really dig up into. And the quality of each piece is really good. They had like the mall cops in there. I don't know what they're strapped with, but probably like an art taser. And yeah, they didn't let you touch nothing. It was sad. I was there.